Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 18th of September, comes to you from London. We start by looking at the dollar. Dollar sinking a little bit lower this morning. Main news story is new trade tariffs against China. So we are just seeing that having an effect, a little bit of an effect on the dollar. But interestingly, euro is down against the dollar as well. So we're seeing the yen rising. Really based on that flight to safety, really. So yen is a safe haven, and we're seeing the yen just a bit stronger this morning, but the trend is still very much in favor of stronger dollar. Sterling hit 131 yesterday, so we're looking stronger against the US dollar here as well. And against the euro, sterling is looking a bit stronger as well. So hopes for a Brexit deal just helping the UK currency there. Flat against the Swiss franc though, and against the Aussie dollar, sterling has weakened somewhat. Just the Aussie dollar strength kicking in there the last day. Bitcoin sitting at about 6,200 really hasn't moved that much. Dived yesterday quite a bit, so we're still bearish on all three time frames for Bitcoin. So a worry there. U.S. markets last night were down. Trade fears pushing markets lower. The S&P was down 0.5%. The Nasdaq actually was down significantly more, down 1.5%. So we saw tech really selling off there. Seemed to be the biggest impact of the trade war with China will be on US tech stocks, and we're seeing also that the Dow was slightly lower, but not as affected as the tech-laden Nasdaq. And the Russell 2000 index, the broader-based US market, was also down 1%. That's still looking bearish on the short term. The futures this morning are up slightly after a big sell-off yesterday, but only slightly. So we're not really able to say which way the US market will open. The UK market down this morning. Not by a massive amount, but still looking bearish on that medium-term chart quite significantly. Mid-caps in the UK looking a little bit better, but again, bearish in that medium-term chart. The DAX actually down a bit this morning as well, so looking weaker there. And the CAC 40 actually up very slightly, so we're seeing a mixed picture in Europe. Japan actually traded quite a bit higher yesterday, jumped to multi-week high. Basically, after being closed the holiday on Monday, just pushed higher. So interesting reaction there. The Hang Seng was up slightly too, having sold off heavily the day before, and the Chinese market, strangely, was up as well, but still looking bearish on all three time frames. The Indian Sensex was little changed overnight, and the Aussie market also down slightly, down about 1/3%. Brent crude selling off a little bit, so we're bearish on that short-term chart, just struggling to break that $80. Quite strong resistance there, so we are bearish in the short term with downside targets to the mid-70s. WTI also fell below the cloud on the short-term chart, so we are seeing downside targets here to the mid-60s, so much the same picture. Nat gas in the US sitting at $2.83, and if we look at gold, gold actually looking weaker as well, but on the short term, just cannot break that $1,200 level convincingly. Quite strong resistance there on the point and figure chart. Taking a look at silver, we are also just bearish on the short term chart there as well, and the medium and long term charts still look pretty bearish for silver. US 10-year yields hit 3%, so we are at the 3% level this morning. So pushing higher there, bullish on the yield. German bond prices actually up slightly this morning, but generally looking pretty weak still. Taking a look at Apple, we saw the shares down quite heavily, down over 2% yesterday, based on the Nasdaq going lower. And also we saw Amazon, and that actually puts Apple into bearish territory on the short-term chart, although no clear downside targets. Amazon weaker as well, short-term. We do have a downside target there of 8% on Amazon, although it's a lone target, and the chart's still looking pretty bullish on the medium and long-term charts. Of Google below the cloud on the short term as well, with quite a few downside targets actually. So we are saying that Facebook nudging this 160 mark, and we've said bearish below 170, but psychologically a move below 160 would be bad. And of course, we've got these lows that we saw back in April. If we take those lows out in the mid 150s, then that would be bad for Facebook. And we do have downside targets significantly lower as well. Microsoft didn't fall that much, down 1%, so it was relatively strong. Netflix were weaker, down over nearly 4%, so looking weak there on the medium-term chart. And Tesla actually also just was down slightly, but actually bucking the trend a little bit here, looking a little bit better on the short term. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.